How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. It is Thursday here on the show, and normally Dave Meltzer joins us in the second segment to talk the latest news in the new edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, but a special show here today. We are joined by a very special guest. Jim Valley is joining us here today. We're talking all sorts of things, Japan, his Pacific Rim podcast, all the work he does for Wrestling Observer, and everything that he does. I guess, how long have you been doing this, Jim?
On the radio?
Like I've known you forever.
It has been forever, at least the 90s, for sure.
Yeah, so we'll talk to you about all that today, and the podcast. And then, as noted, Dave's going to be on in the second segment of the show, and you guys can talk about your trip to Japan. Both of you went over there for this year's Tokyo Dome. And we'll talk all of the news as usual. If you've got any questions about Japanese pro wrestling, Jim Valley here is your man. Jim Valley and Fumi do the Pacific Rim podcast at WrestlingObserver.com and a bunch of other stuff as well, and maybe more to come.
Yeah, we're doing the Stardom pay-per-view, which is going to be April 5th on Fight TV.
That's right. Commentary.
The largest women's wrestling organization in the world is coming to the United States for their first ever live pay-per-view.
Now, is it just you and Fumi doing it, or is it going to be like a three-man, the dreaded three-man booth?
I think it's just the two of us. I don't think they could find anybody that could put up with us, so it's going to be the two of us. But if you've never watched Stardom, this will be a good time to jump on because we'll explain everything, all the dynamics, all the characters, all the feuds, and everything that's happened up to that point.
Now, have you guys ever done commentary before?
Not together.
Okay, all right. Well, you got this.
We'll see.
You're a seasoned professional.
We'll see.
A seasoned professional. All right, we're going to talk about this today. We'll take your phone calls, emails, text messages, and more. You're welcome to call to talk to myself, Jim. Mike Sempervive is going to be on. The phone number, 844-411-5411. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. Back in a moment to kick it off, Wrestling Observer Live. Bryan Alvarez, Mike Sempervive, Jim Valley joining us in studio here today. I am very glad, Jim, that you've joined us today, because as I look at all of the text messages I've received right here, ASUKA, Women's Three-Way, ASUKA. I cannot wait for Wrestlemania to be over. I'm sick of this show.
You know, you're a subscriber to Wrestling Observer, Fumi Saito, who is Japan's leading professional wrestling expert. I don't know if Dave is the Fumi of America or Fumi is the Dave of Japan.
Something like that.
Something like that. But we were talking about this on the latest edition, which you can find at the Observer website, Figure 4 Online. And he believes that this is an opportunity for ASUKA. And Fumi thinks that what this means is in the near future, they're going to bring up Io Shirai and Kairi Sane, and there will be like this Japanese contingency of women. So you have Kairi, you have Io, led by ASUKA, and that's what he thinks is going to happen.
That would be a great idea.
See? It's not the end of the world that ASUKA lost the championship.
But here's the problem. You know how many great ideas I've heard that never happened? Countless. That's the story of this company, is great ideas that never happen.
A lot of times, and I don't know this, but a lot of times Fumi knows stuff and he just throws it out there.
I see.
This may or may not be that case.
I see. Well, I hope this is the case.
We'll see.
But here's the only reason I'm skeptical of that right now. Because Bayley and Sasha have announced that they will be defending the titles against anybody from any brand. So there was no better opportunity for Kairi and Io to be brought up for WrestleMania. The NXT team in that four-way. Instead, it's the Iconics.
I agree with you 100%, but they haven't developed Kairi and Io to the audience yet. I think
that's true.
It's probably best that they take some time so people can get to know them and see that they're awesome wrestlers and great personalities, and in Vince McMahon's words, they're entertaining.
Yes. Now, before we go any further, I don't know if you guys have notes or not, but Giraffe now has a replica championship belt. The IWGP title is around his waist. I don't know if you're aware or not, but the G in IWGP stands for Giraffe.
Yes, it does.
Yes, you brought that straight from Japan.
Yes, the New Japan Pro Wrestling store right near Korakuen Hall and the Tokyo Dome. Oh, my God.
Mike, are you jealous?
I would be jealous, but unlike some other people that I do radio shows with, Jim Valley, being a very giving and charitable and benevolent human being, hooked me up with a Kento Miyahara towel.
Wow.
So I know what kind of person Jim can be and what he can bequeath upon somebody. So I thank him very, very much for that.
He knew how sweaty you could be.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Well, it's autographed. I hope he doesn't sweat all over it.
Well, you know what, Brian? After this WrestleMania weekend, at least between you and Giraffe, one of you will have a title belt.
That's right.
Heyo.
It's going to be me. All right.
Yeah.
What else have you got there, Jim? I know you got another special gift here.
I do have something that may be even better than a Kento Miyahara autographed towel.
You hear that, Mike?
Ooh.
And this is also from Japan, and it's vintage. Dave has one.
Vintage?
It is vintage. And
I'm all into vintage.
You will be required to wear this.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm coming back over here, and I'm taking it back.
Okay. All right. What
It
do we
is
got?
the vintage 1990s official Fumi Saito t-shirt.
Wow.
Look at
my.
that. Look at that. Oh, it's upside down. Look at that.
Wow.
This is from his
Look at
mullet
that
days.
mullet.
Yeah, look at that. That's pretty nice. And so there you are.
Toss it over here.
Yeah,
Give it
sure.
a big toss. Hear that sound, everybody? You know what? He is the Japanese Dave Meltzer. He looks just like Dave did in the 90s.
They had mullets back
They
then.
had
didn't
very
Yeah.
similar mullets.
Yeah.
Was that part of the business? Did Keller have one at the time? Did Steve
No,
Beverly have
no,
one?
I don't
no,
think
you
Keller
kidding
did. No, Keller's very preppy.
Yes,
he's
yes,
got
yes.
better.
Beverly never had that much hair,
It was well combed.
He's got a lot of. Yeah, he's very tasteful in his attire.
Was Fumi as jacked up as Dave was? Not many people were.
No,
Okay.
that would be.
In
that'd be
spirit,
impossible.
was he?
That would be nearly impossible.
No, but Fumi's cut off the mullet. He sort of is, a tiny bit maybe not proud of it, but I try to make him have fun with it. It's an awesome shirt, and I have a few more, and I will take them to New York with us, and we'll just randomly hand them out to people. So we're going to
Sweet.
be there.
You have a few
Yeah, it's
more?
gotta be-
I do.
gotta
got
be
a
nice to
medium.
have a T-shirt.
That's the only size I have.
Okay. All right. That's all right.
That's the only size I
People
have.
think I'm larger than I am. I know it's hard to believe.
Well, the camera adds 10 pounds.
That is true. That is true. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're required to wear that.
I will wear that. I'm
Okay.
going to cut the sleeves off of it. I may wear it tomorrow to Saturday to All Pro Wrestling.
That would be awesome.
I may fight in that thing, everybody. All right, let's do a couple of the texts. Actually, let's go to... the guy hung up, so let's not go to the phones. All right, a couple of news notes here before we get going. As some of you know, SmackDown... I hate to even mention this because it'll trigger everybody, but SmackDown with Charlotte winning the title did the best rating since August 21st of last year. The show is up to 2.393 million viewers, up 9% from last week. I know that the Charlotte haters, the Asuka lovers, are going to point out that it had to be the gauntlet match. Unfortunately, we had two gauntlet matches prior to this, neither of which did anything near these numbers, so I'm afraid it might have been that Charlotte-Asuka match. Retained 92% of the Raw audience, the highest percentage since the New Year's Day and Christmas Day episodes. And prior to this, the highest number was SmackDown 1000 in October, which doesn't count because they promoted that thing like crazy. August 21st was the last time SmackDown did a number like this. So there you go. Don't know what to tell everybody. What are your thoughts on SmackDown and Raw? You follow it closely?
Of course, you have
Okay.
to. Yeah.
All right. I mean, how closely? You actually watch all of Raw?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all of Raw, all of SmackDown. I find SmackDown to be easier to watch. Just
It's definitely easier to watch.
Like everybody else. I kind of worry. Everyone's talking about Asuka. I worry how much time Kofi and Bryan are going to get. A lot of times, the SmackDown title tends to be sort of shortchanged at WrestleMania. And given Bryan's history of a lot of times they shortchanged him with the exception of his main event victory. I don't know. I hope they give it everything it deserves because I know a lot of people are excited for it, even though it's not the official last match on the show.
I think they'll get a acceptable amount of time, but we are at 13 matches right now, and there's probably going to be minimum 3 more and maximum 5 more. I mean, it looks like a 16 to 18 match card, and they're still going to try to fit it in 4.5 hours on the main show, 2 hours on the pre-show. So 3 of those on the pre-show. You're still talking, 13, 14 matches on the main card. You know they're going to give the women time. You know they're going to give Triple H and Batista time because they always do. That one could get a half hour. And then, I don't know. They could be somewhat shortchanged. I think they'll get 12 to 15.
Plus, you also know that there's going to be some sort of performance from an artist that's on the now that's what I call music CDs. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it's going to be the Drifter.
You think so?
He's the musical guest.
It's true.
I mean, some real musical guest should show up and break the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not going to go very long.
But I don't think that's going to happen. And
Where's
of course,
Joan Jett at in all of this? Is she's
there
part of the weekend? But is she opening the show? Is she part of the weekend?
No, she's playing Rousey's music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's out there playing Rousey's theme in the main event. So I don't think we mentioned that here, but yes, Joan Jett is showing up to play Ronda Rousey's music live as she heads down to the ring. So
but that's not enough Gaga for them, and that's what just gets me about the length of the matches and having how many of them on there is because you know they're going to have a zillion things in between these matches. So it's not like we're just going to skip from match to match to match. There's going to be buffers between all of them, not counting the video packages we've seen a zillion times, and they're always very well done. But we've seen them a zillion times in the lead up to this thing. So that's where it's not even the number of matches, it's all the stuff they have in between that drags it out.
Yeah.
I want to clarify as well, since this is being reported various places about the main event. Yes, Dave said one of the ideas for the match was to say it is winner take all, but it is not winner take all. The idea is both of the titles are on the line. So if Becky beats Charlotte, Becky wins the SmackDown title, but not the Raw title. If Ronda Rousey beats Charlotte, Ronda Rousey is a double champion. If Charlotte beats Ronda, Charlotte is a double champion. If Ronda or Charlotte beat Becky, no titles change. That's what this match is right now. So I don't think they'll call it winner take all, but they could. That was one of the ideas. We're going to do a break. Back in a moment. Big Dave Meltzer is going to join us. 4 people here on this show. Back in a moment. Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, a Wrestling Observer Live. Yes, Mike Sempervive is joining us, Jim Valley is joining us, and Dave Meltzer is joining us. Do we have enough people here on this program today? Dave, what's going on?
4-man broadcast team.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going on.
Well,
trying to catch up on everything today.
Hey, I want to start with this. You and Jim both went to the Tokyo Dome this year. So I want to give you both the opportunity, starting with you, Dave. What was your favorite memory from the trip?
From the entire trip?
Yep.
Oh, man, that's really tough.
Someday you're going to look back and go, I'm so glad I went to the Tokyo Dome in 2019 because...
Wasn't my favorite memory wouldn't be the Tokyo Dome. My favorite memory would be doing the podcast with Fumi.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to ask my favorite memory of the trip, and just hanging out with my son. The stuff that we did, like going to the temples and all that stuff was my favorite. At the Tokyo Dome, I think just the whole enormity of the event was really fun, and being there to see... I mean, Tanahashi Omega was probably the best live match I've ever seen, so that was really cool seeing that. I mean, we were pretty far away from it, but you still were in the crowd for like a really incredible... epic match, and just the whole display, the Tanahashi post match. It was a really big show. It was equivalent to a WrestleMania, but with a lot better wrestling.
What was your favorite memory, Jim?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, I loved walking around the Baba exhibit, recording Dave as we talked about all of the artifacts from Baba's career, which you can hear up at f4wonline.com. But for me, when I think about Dave in Tokyo, I think about all the fans who came up and talked to Dave, and Dave couldn't go 20 feet.
Yeah.
And Dave is such a nice man that he had a conversation when he could with virtually everybody. And... and even Dave...
You know what? I got to interrupt you. Going to that Tokan Domi, whatever store...
The Totokan.
Totokan. The Totokan store. That may have been my favorite memory. That place was incredible.
If we go back, Dave has talked to me about recording and walking through that store.
Yeah, we were going to do that if we go back on it.
There may not be enough bandwidth to hold that show, but we will try.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. This place, you wouldn't believe this place. It's got, like, magazines from the 50s. It has ticket stubs of, like, Fritz von Erich against Baba and things like that.
So is it a store where, like, if you really wanted to, you could buy one of these ticket stubs for,
like... everything there. I mean, the prices are really high for the really good stuff, but, like, magazines and stuff, if you want magazines from the 50s and 60s, you could probably get them for, I don't know, $5-10. It's It's not outrageous or anything.
They have autographed gear from wrestlers you can buy. They have walls of masks,
ring outfits and stuff.
Yeah, you could buy a Great Muta headgear that he used to wear.
Really?
Yeah, an original one.
Yeah, the really cool one stuff. Yeah.
How about the big Vader one he used to wear that blew smoke? Is that available?
Not there. I don't think.
Man. That's one to look for.
But the cool thing is walking around with Dave and seeing all of the Observer readers. And, there's always the stereotype that we all live in trailers and we all have no teeth and all of that. And people always snicker about wrestling fans. It's not real and everything. And everybody who came up to Dave could not have been nicer.
Yes.
Regular, cool, polite people just talking wrestling, just to enjoy wrestling. They were so nice.
All over the world.
All over.
So awesome. People from Panama and Brazil. I mean, it's like, Morocco. I mean, you expect like UK, all over the United States, Canada, places like that, right? But I mean, places that I would have never expected. Hong Kong. I mean, I think I had a list coming back in the Observer of like countries that I met. It was like dozens of countries, and I mean, another one of my favorite memories was this really pretty girl at the Ryzen show who came up to me, and it was actually her boyfriend. They barely speak English, and they listen to our podcast. And I told you the story about the girl who said,
my favorite story.
Like the Bryan Alvarez, my favorite English word, geek, like that. And it was really
I changed the world.
Yeah.
Taking that word geek to Japan.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at all the people that went this year, obviously the everybody wanted to go to the Tokyo Dome this year because of how hot New Japan has been. Do you feel, this is for both of you, Dave, you can go first, do you feel that we have hit the peak? Like, when you think about the 2020 Tokyo Dome, I guess it's a 2-night show and they got the Liger thing, so... Yeah, I mean, do you feel that 2019 was the peak, or do you think that 2020 it's going to be as big or bigger as far as, like, people coming from all over the world to see
You know what it really depends on? It really depends on whether they make a deal with AEW and if they have Omega and Jericho, which, I think that... I'm pretty sure Jericho will do one of the two shows. I don't know if he's going to do both. And I think Omega, I don't know. I haven't really spoken to Omega on that. I mean, but, these are, if they make a deal with AEW and all those guys are back at the Tokyo Dome by then, I think it probably will be as big, if not bigger, because of the two shows.
Well, don't Omega and Jericho have a contract where they can do New Japan even if AEW doesn't make a deal?
Yeah, but... I mean, I haven't looked at the date. Like if it's the same night as the TV taping, they wouldn't be able to go unless they were given permission to go.
Yeah.
But their contract does allow them to do it if it doesn't conflict with an AEW date. Yeah. And I'm sure that they would be interested. Even if it's just the Tokyo Dome. But there were 6,000 non-Japanese out of the 40,000 in that building, and I think that it could be higher, but it's also a lot harder to get tickets if you're not in Japan. They make it a lot easier for Japanese to get tickets. So I don't know how you but I would think based on word of mouth and everything, because the big increase was the 2018 because of Omega Jericho, and then because of the word of mouth of how much fun everyone had going to Omega Jericho. The 2019 show was, had so many more non-Japanese at it, and I think because of that same word of mouth, I think that number will grow in 2020 if the shows are equivalent to the show in 2019. Because you have to remember the 2019 show on paper was a really phenomenal lineup.
What do you think?
In short, I have faith in Ghetto's booking. Kenny Omega is super popular, and you can't discount that. But at the same time, the Bullet Club has had leaders like Fergal Devitt, and they've had AJ Styles. And maybe Switchblade is going to click, maybe Switchblade isn't, but we have seen that...
He will in time.
Yeah.
100% he will in time. He's already getting there now.
New Japan has a history of creating stars. New Japan has a history of creating stars and creating interest, and I think too often people apply New Japan through a WWE lens, which isn't as strong, in my opinion, in making stars, and their booking can be nonsensical at times, where New Japan's isn't. So for people who are worried that this is the end, I would say that 2019, 2020 isn't the end of the world, and even if they don't sell out, say, Dallas, or even for some reason don't sell out the 2 Tokyo Dome shows, I think that they are still going to grow, and they look to the future, and given given the past results, I have faith in Gedo, and I have faith in whomever New Japan brings in.
What do you think, Mike?
I think overall, interest may be down, but at least for that weekend, with going to 2 nights, it's going to be a big deal. So no matter what, it's going to be a very big deal. But like Jim said, it's very difficult to not have to stand back, even if you don't like something right away, and go, well, I'm going to let this play out. You have to have that kind of faith in what they've done. And I know it's very easy to get upset. Like Jim mentioned, Jay White has been a very polarizing figure. And we'll have to see what happens and see how everything plays out at Madison Square Garden. But
he has been, but the reaction of Jay White is identical to the reaction at the same stage of the game to Okada. And I'm not saying that Jay White's going to be Okada, because I don't think he will, because that's a ridiculous standard. But the idea, a guy at his age whose psychology is as good as his, barring injury, he is going to be one of the top guys in the business.
Well, and if you go back and look, too, I mean, if you go back, Omega is going to kill it. He can't carry it like Styles did. Styles couldn't carry it like Devitt did. Devitt and the Bullet Club are going to kill New Japan. We've heard this kind of go over and over again, where things have played out okay. So because that's been the case, you have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, where unfortunately with WWE or maybe another promotion, you don't necessarily do that.
Another key, too, and this is not for 2020, but more for like 2025, is, you watch Umino and Ren Narita and people like that, and it's like the future of that company's in real good hands.
You going to the MSG show?
I'll be at the MSG show. As I mentioned, Fumi and I are calling the Stardom pay-per-view on April 5th on Fight TV. That's going to be exciting.
And Dave, you're going home before MSG.
Yeah, I'm going home the day before, yeah.
Jim, if you could only see Jim's face right now.
Well, you're not going to be there?
No, he's not there.
Not at MSG, no.
Oh, my gosh. I can't imagine that.
No, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't. I mean, I would love to, but it's impossible.
Oh, by the way, Dave, I want to mention, if we are going to Budokan for the G1, let me know.
I can't go to Budokan because it's the same week as SummerSlam. If it was a week apart, there was a chance. That's another weekend. That's going to be the craziest weekend of all, because there's 3 Budokans, SummerSlam, and TakeOver the night before SummerSlam, all condensed in like 48 hours or something. It's insane.
Dear God.
So, yeah. But I am going to go to the Tokyo Dome next year. I'm virtually certain of that.
Dave, very quickly, we've got a couple of moments here, but the American Airlines Arena not doing huge numbers. Is this a concern to you?
It's a lesson.
Is it a surprise? Because I'm kind of surprised.
A little bit. I thought it would get off. I didn't expect it to be gigantic, but I thought it would get off stronger than it did. I think part of it is that New Japan's still a traveling crowd, and they're only going to go to so many shows. And at this point, I think you got to give them a lineup. And the problem is that the way New Japan works,
no
you're not
lineup.
going to get that lineup until after Dominion in June. And that's just how it is in Japan. I mean, I get frustrated, with the Garden show. It's like, God, they need to announce more. But they had already sold that out, so it wasn't as imperative.
Yeah. Well, we had to head to a break. I want to thank you so much for doing the show here today. Back in a moment, everybody. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Jim Valley here. Before we get into the complete insanity of women's wrestling, and I cannot wait for this to end at WrestleMania, I do want to mention, the reason I'm surprised about the American Airlines Arena is not that it is another New Japan show. It's in very close proximity to an all-elite show. It is going to be largely a fly-in crowd. But it's not just any New Japan show. It's the opening day of the G1. You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's ever a show, other than if they brought the Tokyo Dome to America, which they're not going to do. Like, if ever there was a show that you would expect to do good numbers just because there's never not been a good opening day of the G1, it would be this one. And they sold like 1,600 tickets the first day. I was astounded. I thought it would do better.
I'm curious about it's like a gilded class, that the traveling fan who's able to go that AEW, that these promotions kind of bank on coming to these shows. Obviously, New Japan does and did. You know, they bank on people coming to these shows, and I think that's, I don't know how much, excess wealth is out there and how much spending money is out there for today's wrestling fan. It seems to be a lot, because the most passionate ones seem to spend a lot of money, but I just don't know if you can rely on that. And I don't know if their expansion efforts, if they're going about it in the best way. A 4th of July weekend, to expect people to fly to Dallas, Texas, I just think that that's a lot to ask for, and I think it's a lot to ask for anybody flying in anywhere. I mean, even we'll see what happens with this All-In show and how the secondary retail market is and everything and all the events around that, because that's going to say a lot too. I mean, you're asking a lot of people, and I'm not saying the bloom is off the rose. I think everybody, if they could, would love to travel to these shows, but I think you're just that fan base that you're really banking on doing that and who's been there for you. I don't know if you can continue to rely on them.
All right. Any comments on that before we address the masses here?
I think Mike makes a great point about how much money do fans have to travel to event year after year, but I also think it's a credit to AEW for their identity marketing. People identify with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho as a cause. AEW for many fans is a cause. The WWE Universe is a cause for many fans. And I don't know that New Japan has gotten fans to identify with them on that personal level. I think people love New Japan. They love the action. They love the excitement. The booking makes sense. The matches are great. But I don't know that New Japan has done a great job of personally connecting with fans on the level that AEW and WWE has.
All right, let's go into some of this right here. Listen, everybody, where to even begin? I got so many text messages, emails, posts on the board, people losing their mind over this women's three-way and ASUKA, okay? Listen, let me explain something from yesterday. When I explained to everybody that the belt is a prop, all I've heard today is, I cannot believe you're using a Vince Russo argument here. Let me explain this to you, everybody. Let's talk about New Japan. IWGP Title. It is a very, very important cog in the wheel of New Japan, right? It is the championship everyone aspires to. It is, whenever they write a story, it's about who is the IWGP champion, who's going to be defending the title, who's going to be fighting for the title. It makes the world go round, right?
It's the focus.
Okay. Now, first off, that's not how things are in WWE, number one, okay? But number two, this was my entire point yesterday. Wrestlers are people like you and me. They're doing a job that they are paid for. They are going to work. They are actors in a stage play. I'm not talking about what you see on television. I'm talking about in real life, okay? ASUKA is paid a lot of money to get in the ring and do matches, performances with other women.
Probably the most money she's ever made in her career.
In her career, okay? Whether or not she gets to carry around the fake belt, okay? It's irrelevant to her life. I'm sure she likes the fact that she was the champion, but she's not going to quit because they put that fake belt on somebody else for a storyline. That's what I'm trying to say here. I had people yesterday wondering why she wasn't going to quit. Why she wasn't going to go back to Japan because Charlotte beat her for the title. This, everybody, it's madness. You don't understand what this business is anymore. These are human beings that are making a lot of money to do a job. I'm sure, the Revival wants to get out of there. And you know what? Let me tell you something, everybody. The Revival wanted to quit. The Revival were given the fake belts, and you know what? They still want to quit. Because it's not about, as a person doing a job, whether that fake belt is around your waist. They're doing a job here. Are they having fun doing the job? Are they not having the fun doing the job? You guys are putting too much stock into these fake belts. These people chanting, "You deserve it," and "Oh my God, this person deserves a belt." Asuka's she's being screwed by not being the champion right now. That's not real life. Everybody needs to get over this. These people upset about my comment about the ratings in Charlotte. How can you give credit, this person says, to ratings for an unadvertised match? Charlotte versus Asuka was unadvertised. It's clear that people are into the Kofi storyline. Okay, everybody step away from the ledge and step away from whoever you like, dislike, whatever side you're on in this three-way story, whoever your favorite is. Let's just look at only the facts of this rating here, everybody. Only the facts. The facts are that SmackDown did the best rating since July. Okay? So, they had a gauntlet match that did not involve Kofi Kingston. The gauntlet match was about getting Kofi into the match, but he wasn't even in it. And you know what else? The gauntlet match was an unadvertised match. The Asuka match was unadvertised with Charlotte, but guess what? So was the gauntlet match. They've been doing gauntlet matches. They've been doing this Kofi storyline for a month and a half now. It never boosted the rating to this level. If you take away your emotional investment in everything, what happened on the show that was different than anything else they've been doing over the last couple of months? An unadvertised championship match involving Charlotte and Asuka. I'm not downplaying Asuka here. She was in the match. But that is the thing that was different. They've been doing gauntlets. They've been doing stuff with Kofi. The Kurt Angle match was a minute long. That 1 minute in a 120-minute show is not what's turning this rating around. It is very likely, if you take away your emotional investment in all of this, that the Asuka versus Charlotte long championship match that changed the main event of WrestleMania is very likely what boosted that number. Am I wrong? Am I being crazy here?
I think that something to consider is that Charlotte Flair is part of the WWE family.
Yes.
And I would say that it looks like Becky Lynch now is part of the WWE family.
Yes.
And to give someone, you have to understand, Vince McMahon sees booking and putting you on WrestleMania as a gift. You don't deserve it, but he's benevolent enough to give you this gift. And I think that they're looking long term for when they do Access in 2030 or what have you. Charlotte is always going to be signing her 5x10s, 8x10s as the first main event women main event in WrestleMania history. And I don't know that Asuka has ingrained herself enough in that family where they don't think she's eventually just going to go back to Japan and live her life. And if they're going to give someone that gift of winning and having your arm raised in the first ever female main event of WrestleMania, they want to make sure that you're going to be with the company forever so they can profit off of that in the future.
Yes, I had people yesterday telling me, I can't believe Asuka's being used to put over someone in this main event. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you think wrestling is?
Right.
Wrestling is like, there's a hierarchy of people, and like, depending on what's going on at the time, there's people at the top, and there's people in the middle, and there's people at the bottom. And the people at the bottom virtually never win. It's just the way things go. The people in the middle, they all trade wins here and there, and then there's people at the top that rarely lose. Except in WWE, they lose all the time, but that's another matter entirely. But the point is, like, if the focus of your WrestleMania is Charlotte and Becky and Ronda, then yes, Asuka isn't there. She's not as important as them right now. That doesn't mean that she's never going to be important again. I mean, people yesterday they went through the Asuka win-loss record, and they pointed out that, like, she's lost less than anybody. She's got more wins than anybody.
We saw her win in Everett a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, she wins she almost never loses. She loses one match to Charlotte on SmackDown and everybody's losing their mind. This is madness. All right. What else do we want to talk about? Anything?
Hey, I want to mention real quick, speaking of Asuka's protege, who she trained, Konami, wrestles for Stardom.
Yes, and you'll be doing commentary April 5th for the Stardom show.
April 5th on Fight TV, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm sure Konami will be on the show fighting. Also, something, Mayo Iwatani is going to be on the show. Iwatani is going to be on the show. She's the Women of Honor champion. And also, don't forget the ace of Stardom, Momo Watanabe. She's held the Wonder of Stardom Championship, the Intercontinental title. She beat Io Shirai for it, and has now broken Io Shirai's record for the most title defenses.
Brian,
and something.
You know how old Watanabe is? She's
19.
12 years old.
12?
She's pretty much started that, yeah. She just turned 19, and she's
I was right.
Good. Yeah.
How dare you, Mike?
Yeah. But her protege, something happened last night at Korakuen, where she called out her protege, the Rookie of the Year, Utami Hayashida, who was the second for Rookie of the Year in The Observer. And it looks like they're tag team champions in Stardom. Utami has like all of the championship belts, and it looks like they're going to be on a collision course, maybe in New York City. So it's going to be interesting. Teacher versus student, stablemate versus stablemate. And, you know, they're both in the same Queen's Quest, the same unit of stars. And it's sort of like a San Martino Zabisco, maybe. Teacher versus student, which could happen. I don't know if the match has been made yet, but that certainly looks like where they're going.
All right, so let me ask you a question here, because you had brought something up earlier that Fumi had mentioned about maybe doing a stable with Kairi and Io and Asuka. Wasn't there some heat in Stardom with these three, particularly Asuka and Io?
I've heard of it. I don't know of any details.
I mean, listen, there's a lot of people in WWE, I'm sure, that don't like each other. They still work together. So it's not like, you know.
Or
if they ask these three to be a group, they're going to be a group.
Assuming that, let's say something did happen, and I don't know that it did. Maybe it's water under the bridge, and maybe they talked, and people apologized or went, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot had to do with, like, it was business, and that's one of the reasons they Kana and / Asuka was not a member of Stardom. When, you know, they instead of doing triple tails over there, they didn't get a chance to do that. But, I mean, does it really matter now? You know, at this point, I think whether it's water under the bridge or not personally between them, business-wise, it definitely is. Things have moved on to the point where they've already been swept away with the tide. So it doesn't really matter how they think of each other. They're either going to be working with each other, and time moves on.
Which match are you most looking forward to at MSG?
Oh, the main event. For sure, the main event. Also, Oedo Tai is going to be on the MSG show in the dark match. So some Stardom women are actually going to be opening up the show, along with Hana Kimura, who's also awesome.
All right, we're going to head to a break. Everybody, back in a moment with more Wrestling Observer Live. Hey, everybody, we're back. Bryan Alvarez, Mike Sempervive, Jim Valley is here. Jim's going to be doing commentary, him and Fumi, for the Stardom show, which happens to be taking place on April 5th. What time?
4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. It's at the NYC Arena in Queens, New York. Tickets are still available. You can get in, and who knows, I might have some Fumi shirts to hand out to the crowd.
I gotta check my schedule. I may be in the ring with Orange Cassidy at that exact same time. I'll have to check. That's also taking place April 5th.
So if people are frustrated with what's happening with Asuka and women's wrestling, check out the Stardom pay-per-view.
Yes.
It's got great wrestling.
But Asuka won't be on there.
Or
Becky.
But Konami, who is Asuka's protege, will be on the show, and she wrestles a lot like Asuka.
That's right. You can check this out, Fight
TV?
Fight TV.
$9.99, or it's part of the package if you buy the $119.99 package for the weekend.
That's right. Let's get a quick plug-in for the podcast as well at WrestlingObserver.com.
I do the Portland WrestleCast, which recounts all the history of Portland wrestling, take you through some memorable angles, and do some great interviews, talk about the stories. Living at the Bomber, the Crummy Hotel,
yes,
the parties.
The famous Bomber.
All the stuff. I've talked to Raven. I've talked to Scott Norton. I talked to Larry Hennig, Kurt Hennig's dad, before he passed away. So those are some. I've gotten a lot of great feedback. People are like, I didn't even know Portland, and now I've learned so much, and they like the show. And then, of course, the Pacific Rim Pro Wrestling Podcast, Fumi Saito, Japan's leading expert. We just did like 90 minutes on the history of Japanese women's wrestling, which 1948 it goes back to.
Wow.
So when you think about the women's revolution in WWE, which is awesome, they were doing this in Japan in 1948.
1948, everybody. Well, there you go. So check it out at WrestlingObserver.com. I want to thank you so much for doing the show here today. Hopefully we can get back on again sometime. And we're out of time, everybody. I want to thank Mike as always, callers and listeners, Big Dave, everybody in the studio. We'll talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live.